I want Malos to join the battle in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as a playable fighter. Don't worry, this doesn't mean that I don't want characters like Rex or Elma to also join in as playable characters. I just also want Malos. In fact, probably my dream reveal for Xenoblade characters in Ultimate would be something similar to the Robin thing, where it's a couple Nintendo characters that have already been revealed are fighting Malos, he gets shown off, oh hey, he's a playable character. Then Rex comes in using his knowledge of having fought Malos before, oh hey, Rex is the actual newcomer from the Xenoblade series. Then he gets backed into a corner, Adam shows up and helps him out, he's an echo for Rex. And then somehow Elma just pops in there, she's playable too. I want all the characters. But today specifically, since I don't really have the time to make a big video about all of them, I'm just going to be talking about why I think Malos would be a great addition to the Smash roster and be a good Shulk echo, while also just kind of going over the changes that I would make. I'm definitely going to make videos about Rex/Adam and Elma in the future, but spoiler-wise, technically, the only stuff I need to talk about Malos is shown off in trailers for Torn of the Golden Country, so it's technically not a spoiler per se, but just based on the amount of footage I'm able to get, I'm going to be using the challenge mode version of the final boss of Chapter 7 of the Xenoblade 2 story, so I'd recommend seeing that boss because the other character in it is a spoiler. Obviously, if Malos is going to be in the game as an Echo Fighter, he should be one of Shulk. They're both sword fighters from Xenoblade, they both have Monados, and they both use Monado arts. Also, if we're going by the whole Ultimate is definitely playing up the villains aspects to the point where two of the characters we've got already are villains. The K. Rool trailer is literally called The Rivals, playing up the fact that he is the rival to Donkey Kong. That's probably an important thing if they're doing that. So he would be a villain for the Xenoblade series. Obviously, he'd go better if Rex or someone from Xenoblade 2 was also in the game, since him being a villain for a series, even though he's in a game that Shulk isn't in, kinda doesn't work, but he's also the only Xenoblade villain that could actually be a Shulk echo in the first place, so it could still go either way, even if we don't get Rex, Pyra, Mythra, or whoever in the base roster. Additionally, Sakurai really liked Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but unfortunately, character designs weren't finalized until after Smash Ultimate's design document, and therefore probably its base roster, were already decided, and there wasn't enough time from when the game comes out to when Ultimate releases for Sakurai to actually add in a completely new character from it. So if he's going to try to shoehorn as much Xenoblade 2 stuff in there as possible, putting in an Echo Fighter is probably the only way he can do it without waiting for DLC. As for whether or not Malos will actually happen in the base roster, I'm pretty sure he won't actually. I'm putting the chances for any Xenoblade 2 character in the base roster as an original fighter at basically 0, and I'm even putting Elma pretty low, maybe 30 to 40%, just because X didn't do that well, and Sakurai doesn't have the whole, yeah, I really like this game thing, encouraging him to put a character in it, so I don't really think Elma has too big of a chance either, in my own opinion. But while Malos would work as a Shulk echo, I don't know if Sakurai would actually put him in, even if they did have the time to do it, and that's because he's a villain with no hero. Yes, he is a villain from Shulk's series who could definitely be a Shulk echo, but he isn't Shulk's villain. We've already got Metalface on the Gower Plain stage as a boss who's the villain for Shulk, and with bosses being played up too, especially with things like Dracula, I could see Metalface playing an important role in a story mode or single player or whatever, but Malos isn't from Shulk's game. Shulk isn't the one with the beef with him who would make him actually want to fight him. I don't really know. He'd be the first villain without a hero, and the first villain from a game without any other characters from that game in it too, so I'm really not sure. I don't think he's very likely, but if we do get Rex or Pyra or Mythra or whoever, if they're an original fighter, I definitely want to also see Malos as a Shulk echo. So then, how would my hypothetical Smash Fighter 57 Epsilon Malos actually play in-game? Well, obviously he is an Echo Fighter for Shulk, but there are a few changes that I'd want to make for him that would make him act more like he does in his fights in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, as well as just straight up removing things that Shulk does that he doesn't at all. The first thing would be to actually change up his properties in some way. Now, I'm actually not sure what I would do for that. I was thinking maybe heavier but stronger, but maybe also lighter and faster because he's the one who creates his own Monado since he's a blade as opposed to Shulk who's using a different one and he can use the power of the sword to control himself better. I was thinking even maybe more maneuverable and more powerful, but also weaker in damage, maybe more with knockback instead, something like that. I kind of like the idea of being more maneuverable, but also heavier, so he's harder to knock out, but maybe making him slightly more combo-based than Shulk and decreasing his damage output or something like that. I want his physical properties to be different to reflect the fact that he is the Aegis. He is the guy who makes the good sword. He isn't the guy who found the good sword, which Shulk is. And of course, I would also change up specifically his specials, but I do want to go into his normals a little bit later on. The first and most obvious change to his specials would be giving him different Monado arts. Shulk actually just straight up has 2 arts invented for him, only 3 of his 5 are actually ones in Xenoblade 1, so Malos not only has the pool of Monado arts Shulk can learn and doesn't use in Smash, but he also has the pool of Monado arts he actually uses as a boss, as well as the possibility of inventing new ones. I am going to stick to new ones and ones he uses because I'm trying to distinguish him from Shulk by making him closer to how he is in his own game, so giving him an art that he doesn't use, that Shulk does, just doesn't seem right. So that limits us to Monado Cyclone, Monado Armour, Monado Jail, Monado Eater, and Monado Buster. Shulk already has Buster, and Buster is the most iconic Monado art, so I'd say just keep him with Buster too. Cyclone, Eater, and Armor are arts that both Malos and Shulk share, so while they're only used as enemy attacks in Xenoblade 2, except for Cyclone if you have the DLC, that's one of Shulk's specials, we do have Xenoblade 1 to fall back on and sort of know how they work from the user's perspective. The first one I definitely want to talk about is Monado Armour, which is interesting in that Shulk has arts called Shield and Armor, but they both do 2 completely different things. Shield will block an enemy's talent art, making it only cause 1 damage per hit, which is very useful in difficult situations, whereas Armor is just a simple party-wide defense buff that wears off over time. Unfortunately, Monado Shield in Smash Bros. Is basically a defense buff for Shulk, decreases his movement speed and jump height, but makes him take less damage and knockback. So, I figured, if you already gave Shield Armor's ability, why not give Malos Armor and give Armor Shield's ability? And by that I mean, take the name Armor very literally, and make it give him Super Armor. Now I don't mean something ridiculous like, oh, he has permanent Super Armor. I mean specific armor during things like his specials or when he's charging up a smash attack. To counteract that, since obviously he's not going to be taking knockback, I'd suggest just keeping his physical properties the same, but make him take more damage. And since Armor would be replacing Shield, we now have Buster and Armor for 2 of the 5 arts. Thirdly, I'll be going over Monado Eater, which when used by Shulk is an AoE attack that gives enemies the bleed status, which is damage over time, as well as stripping buffs from them. I figured that there is actually a way to work this into Smash, even though it is giving it a property that neither Shulk nor Malos' version actually has, and that is HP draining. It's already been established that that's a thing that you can have in Smash Bros. With Robin and Nosferatu, among other things, so why not just give Malos a Monado art that I'd say obviously doesn't heal Malos of all the damage he deals, probably something very small like 10% at most, but it basically lets him absorb HP from the enemy while also probably decreasing the damage and knockback. That's a thing that Speed does, so I'd say replace Speed with Eater. As for Monado Jump, I don't really think either Cyclone or Jail could make a good replacement for it in any way, so as much as I don't really want to, since Jump was kind of the lamest art for me, they took the same green from Purge, but gave it Jump when you could easily just give Shulk Purge as a recovery based on the animation he does for it. I never really liked Jump, but I also can't think of a better mobility-based art that doesn't bleed into Jump or Speed's territory, so yeah, we'll just give Malos Jump as well. I do want to replace Monado Smash, however, and I want to do that with Jail. Specifically Jail because I can't really think of a way to use Cyclone as an art that applies a buff or debuff to Malos, and Jail is his only unique Monado art that Shulk doesn't also have, so I want to give him his unique thing if the whole point is to distinguish him from Shulk. So how would Jail work? Smash was intended as the art you went into when you want to finish the enemy, because it gives you better knockback. So my idea for Jail, since you can't really do Shackle Blade in Smash Brothers, since not really every character has something remotely like the Blade system, but I do want to take the idea of Jail, chains, trapping the enemy when you hit them, and apply it to something that would enhance Malos's combo game, again, sort of harkening back to what I said before. And that would be to, instead of increasing knockback, to increase the hit stun from attacks that Malos lands while in this state. I imagine giving it the same weaknesses to Smash, that is, taking more damage and knockback and dealing less damage, but I would also incorporate a knockback reduction, ironically enough, since this is replacing Smash, but if your attacks deal less knockback, but have more hit stun, I'm pretty sure it's a lot easier to follow up, and this could just give you some ridiculous combos. Shulk Buster combos are already pretty interesting, taking advantage of the lessened knockback, but I have a feeling Malos Jail combos could also be pretty cool. Maybe have it something like Inkling's Ink, where chains remain on the character instead of just on a by-hit basis, so he lands more links of a chain every hit he uses while he's in Jail, and then he could swap to another art to get the effects of that art before the chains go away, something like that, or just straight up increase hit stun but nerfed a lot of other things. I don't know, I think that's pretty cool. It's definitely a very unique property that no one in Smash already has as far as we know, so that's something I'd want to see. I'm not going for balance, that would probably be broken in practice, but it's something unique, it's something very Malos, and it's something that I would want to have in the game. So with that, we can go to his other specials. First off, Malos doesn't have visions. He is an Aegis, and Mythra has been shown to have the ability Foresight, which is sort of like it, but I don't really want to give Malos a counter in general. He also never uses Air Slash or Backslash, so we're going to be revamping all three of Malos's other specials. Unfortunately, Malos only uses one non-Monado art with his Monado. He does, though, have 4 more regular arts when he's using the Sword Tonfa with his Blade Sever, and Sword Tonfa, Sword, they're close enough where if you gave Malos his Sever arts as specials when he's using his Monado, it still wouldn't be too big a deal. For his side B replacing Backslash, I would definitely have Striker Edge. This is Malos's only non-Monado art that he uses when he's using the Monado. In Xenoblade 2, its effect beyond damage is giving you the knockback condition. It's a very simple and very small debuff where basically you just get knocked back and you can't do anything until you recover. Obviously, this is Smash Brothers. Knockback is kind of the name of the game, so giving him an art that inflicts knockback is kind of a no-brainer. He does also have Sword Strike, but that's a Sword Tonfa art, and I'd rather give him the one art that he actually uses with his Monado other than giving him a Sword Tonfa one if I could. So, really the only thing I can imagine from this is Ike's side B, where he zooms out and hits you pretty hard, and you can charge it up to go further, move faster, deal more damage and knockback, that kind of thing. Obviously, I'd give it something a little different to make it more different from Ike's side B. You could go the Chrom route and just give him other sword fighter moves, but I don't really like that. I'd rather just give him unique versions of Shulk moves instead. So maybe it has something different, like it goes at an upwards or downwards angle if you use it in the air. Maybe it's a spike somehow. Maybe you don't move at all and it's just charging up a big hit. Something. I'm not 100% sure, but for a side B, I definitely want to give him Striker Edge. When talking about up specials for Malos, there are two really obvious ones that come to mind. The first one is just make Monado Cyclone a regular attack instead of an art buff and give him that, or give him the Sword Tonfa art Spiral Savate, both of which involve spinning, and you could basically just Chromify him again, give him Ike side B, give him Link's up B. In the air, he spins and rises. On the ground, he spins and does damage. If you want him to go Chrommy, then that's definitely what I'd suggest. Just make Striker Edge Ike side B, make probably Monado Cyclone just to keep it with the Monado thing up B, and that's it. But I have another idea for his up B, and that's probably because I've got Bakugo on the brain, but it's still a pretty cool idea and I want to talk about it. And that is to use the Sword Tonfa art Chakra Burst. Now you're thinking, why use Chakra Burst when you can just use Monado Cyclone, give him another Monado art, and also reuse a move to some degree? Well, that's because Chakra Burst is a Sword Tonfa art that doesn't really use the Sword Tonfa. He just kind of charges up an Ether Explosion and boom, it comes out. So my idea would be, again, take a cue from Bakugo. Make him use that explosion to propel himself. But make it the kind of up special that you actually need to charge and release to use, as opposed to one that just kind of comes out. Basically, if you just tap up B, he'll do something like Mewtwo Nair level of hitbox, and it's just a little poof coming out of him. He pops up a little bit, that's it. But if you hold down up B and then release it, the size of the explosion, the damage and knockback it does, all of that just scales with the amount of charge time. Obviously, there'd be a max charge because we're not all insane here, and whatever, when you release it, it comes out, something happens. Obviously, the amount Malos himself is launched depends on the size of the explosion. As for the trajectory, I'm imagining something mostly vertical. I'm taking a couple Bowser Jr. cues here, so probably even less horizontal than that, especially as Striker Edge allows you horizontal movement in the air, because we don't want his recovery to be too good. I want him in the game, I don't want him to be broken, because I would also want to play Shulk and Brex and all the other Xenoblade characters. That's besides the point. I'm thinking that unlike Bowser Jr.'s, where you actually have the ability to do that super good nair on the way down, that he just gets launched up, does a little flip at the top of the jump arc, and then goes into Special Fall on the way down. Maybe if his body hits you on the way up, you take a slight amount of damage and knockback, but I'm imagining him to move a lot faster even than Bowser Jr. does, so I don't think it would be very good balance to let him actually be able to act out of this until he hits the ground again. For his down special, there are really, unfortunately, not many arts left. We're kind of running out of very good things for him to use. You could give him a counter, obviously, Vision, Foresight. If you're going Chrom route, again, just steal someone else's counter, that makes sense. But as for arts he actually uses, we're down to Monado Cyclone, Sword Strike, Hammer Bash, and Spiral Savate. I'm going to choose to go with Hammer Bash for a couple specific reasons. First off, it's definitely possible to do the same animation with the Monado, so you don't have to worry about it being a weird Sword Tonfa art. Secondly, it causes Topple, and I'm going to change one thing with his normals that's going to kind of get rid of the spiking power of the down aerial, so this would give him a spike since it causes Topple, and, you know, Topple kind of insta-kills flying enemies if you manage to inflict it on them. So if you make it a spike, it insta-kills an enemy that's over a gap. It makes sense kind of lore-wise, but basically my idea for this is a grounded spike attack. If you think about it, every attack that spikes is either an aerial, so you can't use it from the ground, or if it's a special, it's one that has a different property that causes it to not spike. I guess since it's a Topple art, you could make it plant enemies instead, but I like the idea of if you hit it correctly, it's a spike, and then you could get some interesting things with teching if you counter it correctly. Cool things can happen from a grounded spike attack. It might be OP, but it's definitely something different. The animation in Xenoblade 2 is basically him just thrusting the sword tonfa forwards. It's sort of a shield bashy type thing, and that causes topple if the enemy's inflicted with break. You could definitely just do the same thing with him holding the Monado sideways and thrusting the ring part of it forwards. I'm kind of imagining a slightly more over-the-top variation of that in-game animation, where he starts at chest level and then goes up and down, sort of in an arc that makes more sense for it to just be a spike as opposed to it kind of knocking a disoriented enemy off their feet when they're already kind of shaky like it is in Xenoblade. But that's basically it. It would have to have a very, very short range for a grounded spike to be fair in the first place. Maybe if you're on the ground it plants, and if you're in the air it spikes or meteors. That's probably a more sane idea, but I don't know. I'm not very good at Smash, and I'm far from competitive, so I'm just coming up with things that I would think would be cool, and not necessarily ones that would work out very well in-game. Now, like I said, we're gonna move on to his normals, and thank God this goes with a lot less explanation. Basically, Malos' sword doesn't really open up like Shulk's does. Yeah, when he gets it ready for battle, it does kind of have this startup sequence where the core crystal gets out of the way of the ring so you can see the art names and stuff on it, but it doesn't have the thing where it opens up for the beam to come out, and as such, I would imagine Malos' Monado just, wouldn't open. The thing is, Shulk has a few attacks that rely on the Monado opening to give either a secondary hitbox or something along those lines. Since Malos' blade just kind of appears when he chooses it to, I would imagine making all of those 2-hit moves only 1 hit, as well as removing the sweet spot Shulk has at the center of the blade, basically where the light blade meets the actual physical part of the Monado. If you get rid of this sweet spot, that also makes the idea of making Malos both more maneuverable and more damaging, makes it a bit more viable if you nerf something like that. All of his 2-hit moves are now 1 hit, and he has no sweet spot. Maybe you could make him maneuver better physically, like speed-wise, but slow down some of his animations to make him attack slower, that kind of thing. But other than that, you probably wouldn't want to change many of his normals, since a lot of them aren't very specific to Shulk. They're just sword attacks that take advantage of the fact that the Monado has a light blade. The only big exception to that is maybe make his jab based off of his sword tonfa auto attack as opposed to the punch kick sword. Maybe make it a 2-hit thing where it's just a punch and a sword. Something like that. Just make some of his normals based more off of Malos' auto attack animations as opposed to Shulk's ones. And Slit Edge is Shulk's forward smash very obviously. So you could sort of replace that with one of Malos' other arts. Basically just Sword Strike. You could probably just give him Slit Edge and call it Sword Strike and have that be the whole thing. Maybe give him a different kind of forward smash, like a 1-hit version of Ike's or something like that, just to make it visually distinctive. Like, oh, this is a different art. It's not just a 1-hit version of Slit Edge. Down smash you could call Spiral Savate, give it a different animation to make it look more like that. Maybe make Nair something else too, I don't know. That's really all I have, but this video is far longer than I expected. I was thinking something under 10 minutes when I thought of, okay, how would Malos work in Smash? And this is just an echo. So imagine how long my Elma and Rex/Adam videos would be. I'm glad I didn't go over all those in one video. Either way, I hope you enjoyed, and definitely look forward to at least the Rex and Elma videos in the future. So, if you're a Smash fan, I don't know, you probably don't want to subscribe, I'm just a Xenoblade channel, but if you're a Xenoblade fan, subscribe, I'm a very good Xenoblade channel, and until next time, this is Luxin, signing off.